And we're live on YouTube, Your Worship.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Welcome to the Municipality of North Grenville's Council meeting number 4 on Tuesday, February 1 at 6:30 p.m. Thankfully, I can say, even though this meeting is being convened virtually, that we are in a phase of reopening when it comes to COVID restrictions. And I know how many people have welcomed the opportunity to reconnect, to go to our restaurant or a fitness studio. So I truly hope that we are on the other side of our long struggle with COVID. And I encourage everyone who's watching to embrace that local business that you may not have frequented to the same extent as you would have otherwise. It's really been a very challenging time, as we all know. Also, I just want to give a shout out to our facilities superintendent, who welcomed his second child into the world recently. He, I think, was part of the brains behind the Kentville Zamboni, which has gotten a lot of public attention. So we want to wish Joe and his family well, and also a big shout out to Parks and Rec staff who've kept the Kentville Creek alongside Herb Cloutier and some of his volunteers in impeccable shape. I was there briefly today once again, and it's looking awesome. I know that there's some rain forecast and it will be temporarily shut down so that we can salvage the ice for after a mild spell. But I want to once again thank our Parks and Rec staff and our volunteers for their dedication and commitment. It's been the creek and the skating experience has been very well embraced here in North Grenville. So with that in mind, I would like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order. And I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the agenda as presented this evening. Colleagues, I see Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strachan, thank you. That's to move and second the agenda as presented. We don't have a heavy agenda this evening, so it looks like we might be able to get through it fairly efficiently. So I'll call the question unless there are comments or concerns. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. Good. Thank you. Colleagues, we have an agenda. Disclosures of interest. Do I have any disclosures of interest before we begin tonight's proceedings? See none. Thank you. And of course, disclosure of interest is perceived a real financial benefit or loss from any item on the agenda this evening. So no disclosures, and we'll go on to 2 delegations today, and we're very excited to welcome some special guests. Our first one is Ms. Adriana Beeman from the Canadian Women's Heart Health Alliance. I have to say, when Adriana reached out, I was just thrilled to hear from her. She's here to bring some awareness to the realities of heart disease, particularly for women. And we know that signs and symptoms are certainly can be a little more curious or hard to detect or not as well articulated by the medical and layman's community. So it's great to welcome Ms. Beeman here to make a request of counsel. So thank you, Ms. Beeman.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you all this evening. I'm actually a volunteer for the Canadian Women's Heart Health Alliance that is powered by the Canadian Women's Heart Health Centre, which is an organization that receives support from the University of Ottawa Heart Institute. We have now over 100 members. It was just formed a few years ago, and we've doubled our membership, and it consists of heart health specialists, patients like myself, and scientists, and it spans, thanks to all these virtual Zoom technology and so forth, we have members all over Canada. And as Mayor Peckford said, our mission really is to broaden the knowledge about women's heart health to as many people as possible, whoever will listen to us. One statistic that sort of struck me right off the bat was heart disease is the #1 killer of women worldwide and the leading cause of premature death for women. And that really I was very surprised when I learned that. And it was shocking. And I learned that just recently when I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. So that heart disease surpasses all the cancers put together. And globally, cardiovascular disease affects 1 out of every 3 women. So unfortunately, and Mayor Pepper, how do you know? That's just wonderful. I'm so happy that you know all this stuff already. That's just fantastic. But women in Canada and all over the world are understudied, they're underdiagnosed, they're undertreated, they're underaware when it comes to their own cardiovascular health. I know when I was diagnosed, I was very shocked. I was frightened. I never really thought. I thought, well, if I don't have heart disease in my family, I never really thought. I was 55. I wasn't elderly. I didn't smoke. I didn't have sort of those typical things. And so it became very real to me. Wear Red Canada Day is an initiative that the Alliance started a few years ago, and it's been being expanded within each year. It started in 2019, and it's celebrated annually on February 13th. Now, you know, February is Heart Month, but February 13th is geared towards raising awareness about women's heart health. And this year, we're concentrating on 5 key points. Number 1, heart attack symptoms are not recognized in over 50% of women. So women that present themselves at the ER, a lot of times misdiagnosed stress, you know, you're having a bad day, so forth and so on. They don't have the symptoms like clutching that you see in the movies, the pain, the crushing pain. The causes of heart disease are very different between men and women. And women can be at a greater risk for heart disease than men. These are all things I didn't really know before. The good news is that heart disease is largely preventable, and there's a lot that can be done to help reduce that risk. And that's what we're trying to get out, that information. Our slogan this year for Wear Red Canada, to all the women, everyone, but to women, to take care of others, you need to first take care of yourself. And we're spreading the word. We're trying to start the conversation with all the women in your life. So this is a message for everyone to be talking about it. I was reading on your website, and you know, North Grenville is an extraordinary place to live. I want to congratulate you on your platinum certification for 2021. I read about that. I was so interested by the World Council on City Data and all the information I learned about you. And it reveals your extremely educated workforce, your outstanding air quality, your generous access to outdoor recreation space. So when I read that, I went, you know, this award demonstrates to me your commitment. You collect all of this data for the purposes of improving the lives of your residents. So I'm here to ask for your support today on behalf of the Canadian Women's Heart Health Alliance to act as advocates in improving heart health outcomes for the women of North Grenville, and to proclaim February 13th, 2022 as Wear Red Day in North Grenville. I thank you so much for allowing me and listening to me. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Ms. Beeman. I forgot to tell you that we have a nurse on council, Councillor Doreen O'Sullivan, who works for the Ottawa Hospital Network. So I'm sure she may be particularly enthusiastic as I am about the declaration.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
On the 13th.
Thanks.
So, council colleagues, any questions in regards to what Ms. Beeman has presented? Councillor Sullivan?
Not a question, just a comment. I think this is wonderful because certainly heart disease affects women a little bit differently. And I've participated in the Crystal Heart Curling Classic for 15 or 16 years, maybe more. And it's for raising funds for women's heart health. And we were pushing $1 million in that short, no, sorry, it's 22 years. We were pushing $1 million and then COVID knocked us back. But I have a little red dress pin that we got. So I think this is great and very important to increase the awareness. So congratulations and thanks very much for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? Ms. Beeman, I have to say I am quite surprised to learn how many women are in fact impacted by the premature death or onset of heart disease. It really is quite something. It's hard to fathom, right? Because you often hear about women with cancer, but you don't necessarily hear about all the women who are enduring or suffering from heart disease.
And you know, it's scary and exciting at the same time because of this. You know, they're trying to do more research, and even the Alliance has developed a study model to be set in high schools to start teaching, you know, high school students this, and to just make them aware. And there are a lot of studies about pregnancy and how that can be, you know, a cause of later on heart disease, what pregnancy, that like, it's just, it boggles my mind. As I said, I'm a woman with lived experience, but when I get onto these meetings with the Alliance and the webinars that the Heart Institute presents, it is amazing. But sadly, you know, the statistics, you know, they want to reach out to the medical students too, and to you know, expand the knowledge of the differences between men and women. And women take on a lot, so a lot of times they don't go and seek help, and so they're trying to supply just information sessions to different community centers and just bring it out in the open. So it's a wonderful organization. I'm glad to be part of it. I'm very honored to be a volunteer.
Okay, perfect. And we do need to move on, but just one quick question. When you were affected by heart disease, did you know? How did you come to learn you had heart disease? Did you have a heart attack?
So what happened to me was, you know, it happened sort of quickly and slowly at the same time. So congestive heart failure, what that means is that your heart isn't pumping at as it should be. So there's what's called the ejection fraction, which is the percentage of as you know, the percentage of what a normal heart would sort of be at a 50 to 55%. So a couple of years ago, I was feeling very shortness of breath, and I thought, to be honest, and maybe too much information, I thought, oh, I'm going through menopause. Okay, I've got all of this going on. But then I went skating on the canal, and one of my skates, they were quite tight, and I thought, oh, that's unusual. And meanwhile, I had very big swollen ankles, but I always had that. That's just runs in my family and so forth. Then over a period, I went to the doctor and they said, well, you know, perhaps it is menopause. You know, maybe you're stressed out. And I have an excellent family doctor, but again, it wasn't immediately, oh, something to do with your heart. Let's try this, let's try that. And then progressively within weeks, I couldn't walk, you know, from my desk in my office to the door. And I just said one evening, I can't walk. I can't breathe. I'm having the shortness of breath. And I said to my husband, I'd like to go to the hospital. We live near we're sort of in between the Ottawa General and the Civic. And so my husband said, oh, we'll go to the General. And I said, no, I feel like going to the Civic because it's near the Heart Institute for some reason. I just had this inkling. And it took a few days. I was fortunate to be able to have the cardiologist handy and ready and have all the tests done. And my ejection fraction was down to 15%.
Wow. Wow.
And so that's what happened to me. It was quite scary. So,
I think it's really helpful sometimes to hear those stories, right? Because it looks and presents differently than sometimes it does among men. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Yes.
I think the stories matter. Okay, we have unless there's other questions, Counsel, I'll read the recommendation. I know, Ms. Beeman, you've also asked for a video, and I think we could certainly make sure to do that in advance of February 13th, so we can talk about that offline. But
Okay.
Council colleagues, whereas heart disease is the #1 killer of women worldwide and the leading cause of premature death, whereas the Canadian Women's Heart Alliance is an organization of volunteer health professionals, patients, and others, where Red Canada Day is celebrated annually to raise awareness for all Canadians, but especially Canadian women, to be mindful, curious, and proactive in the management of their heart health. We want to see better prevention, diagnosis, care, and fewer women dying prematurely. Be it resolved that the municipality of North Grenville do hereby proclaim February 13th, 2022, Wear Canada Red Day in North Grenville. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Strachan. Many thanks. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Thank you, Ms. Beeman, for getting in touch and for your time this evening. Really worthy work. We hope we can help to amplify your message.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good night. Have a wonderful rest of your meeting. Take care. Stay safe.
We will.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you, colleagues. And now we're moving on to the waterfront access strategy. And I understand Mr. McNeil, James McNeil, is going to present, but we also have 3 or 2 other members from the CDAC committee, the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that is Rick Tachuk and Charlie Boland. And I don't know if you were expecting a third colleague, Charlie and Rick.
No, I believe that's it. Deb is out of town.
That's right. Yeah.
And we were, hopeful that she may be able to join us, but apparently Wi-Fi where she is somewhat limited.
Okay. All right, you can fire away then, Mr. McNeil.
Yeah, okay, no, this is great. Well, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to speak with you. You, Mayor Peckford, are esteemed members of council and members of our community. To speak today to share with you our committee's vision for our waterfront and our support of the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee Waterfront Access Strategy. Just a little bit of background here to kind of put things into context. When we think about the south branch of the Rideau River, sometimes called the Kemptville Creek, and I guess it kind of depends on where you're looking, okay, and what the actual correct name of it is. But I like to refer to it as the south branch of the Rideau River. It's been a key economic engine since the arrival of steamships at Beckett's Landing and Kemptville itself. This trade route has allowed the town to flourish and prosper. The South Branch historically has linked Kemptville with Ottawa, Prescott, and frankly, the rest of the world. And it offers tremendous potential for tourism and economic growth for our future. Frankly, a vibrant waterfront can and must serve as a catalyst for a vibrant downtown core. The current lack of waterfront access and mooring facilities for recreational watercraft in the South Branch poses a significant constraint on the potential growth and vibrancy of Kemptville. The need to address and enhance the waterfront access is addressed in North Grenville's official plan, which indicates that it's an important priority that whenever possible and practical, waterfront lands be acquired by the municipality. While it's clear that North Grenville's waterfront is highly valued within the community, there's a lot of room for improvement, quite frankly. North Grenville's Park and Recreation and Cultural Master Plan also references efforts by the municipality and others aimed at identifying strategies to enhance access to the waterfront. A background research report prepared in 2008 suggested that the greater promotion and awareness about the South Branch is needed to attract more outside boaters, tourism to Kemptville. Terra Marine Walkway project feasibility study was also undertaken to explore opportunities to strengthen connections along the downtown waterfront. The project sought to establish a vision for connecting a series of floating walkways and trails along the waterfront to encourage a greater level of use and enjoyment. Recommendations identified approximately 240 meters of floating walkways that connected the waterfront trail along Curry Park, as well as the trail amenities, including lighting, seating, and safety features. More recently, the municipality's 2019 tourism report recognized that developing and promoting the waterfront as a key strategy to grow our tourism in Kemptville downtown. The Parks and Recreation and Cultural Master Plan indicates that 72% of the respondents surveyed support additional spending on boat launches, docks, canoeing, rowing, kayaking, and paddleboarding. Although substantial efforts by municipalities and others aim to improve the access have been underway for some time, little tangible progress has happened to date. A key recommendation of the Park Recreation and Cultural calling for the development of a waterfront access strategy is well justified and well supported. However, the timeline for this strategy remains longer term. CDAC supports and recommends that Council prioritize the waterfront strategies outlined in the North Granville Parks and Recreation and Cultural Master Plan and encourages Council to commence improvements to facilitate waterfront access in 2022. Current opportunities for accelerating the waterfront access have emerged, which may be leveraged as a catalyst for initiating action on this long overdue priority. LeBoat is expressing interest in Kemptville. And I think this is a really interesting and very important thing for us to be taking a very serious look at. You know, when we're looking at our overall tourism, you know, like we're just not on the radar as far as the boat traffic going by the Rideau. LeBoat is looking, you know, for opportunities to create stop-off points. And I think, you know, they're looking actually for satellites as well. But I think that a reasonable look at, you know, from a stop-off point for the people voyaging down the Rideau from, you know, Smith Falls to Ottawa can stop in Kemptville and go to our restaurants, go to the LCBO, go to the grocery store, what have you. All right, would be something that I think we should really, really take a serious look at.
James, can I interrupt you for a sec? I know
Sure.
that there's other slides in your deck, and I don't know if you want me to prompt staff to move the deck forward for you.
If you just give me just a second, I'm kind of in the warm-up, if you will.
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
on that.
Sounds good.
And then what I was all set to do is share my screen, but hey, it's here. So what I'll do is as soon as I get to that point, I'll say, ask, I'm assuming Hillary. Okay, all right, and to do next slide, please.
Okay, sounds good. All good.
All right. Okay. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about LeBoat, bring that at the forefront here. But you know, we provided a presentation through CDAC, which I believe, you know, Mayor Fickpick, you were there, and so was Deputy Mayor Manahan. But I think it's important that we all take a look at that. So please allow me to walk you through CDAC's vision for our waterway. Thank you. You know, clearly this is, you know, the mouth, you know, facing from the Rideau. Could I see next slide, please? There. What we're looking at is saying, how do we create an identity here, all right, that will announce, okay, to, you know, the Rideau River, all right, that Counsel is here. And what we've just kind of played around with the idea of saying, how do we take, okay, our part of the river and be able to gradually work it within the size of the boats all the way down. So if you think about the big Montreal boats or the big American boats coming by, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if we had mooring cans here? All right, those boats will generally come with other boats, whether it be a kayak, a dinghy, and so on and so forth. And from there, I think that what we need to do is make sure that it's clearly marked and makes it clearly navigable all the way down. Okay, next slide, please. Now, as you kind of work your way down, we end up at Anniversary Park here. And this is the suggestion that was made on the table, is how do we accommodate La Boat? La Boat would like an opportunity to be able to facilitate 4 boats within our municipality. So our suggestion is to say here, it's about 232 feet wide, okay, being the creek there. There seems to be enough water. The suggestion that's on the table is to put 3 docks there, 2 of which can be used, by the request of La Boat, and then the other is just open. Now, this could be run as a system where they could overnight. It could be a source of revenue for the municipality by doing a similar thing to like what Park Canada does, where they have an honor system where you pay a fee for the use of the docks. So there is a way to maybe be able to make a little bit of revenue for there. Next slide. Now, obviously, as you get closer to the bridge clearance starts to become a bit of an issue. So the boats, inherently will get a little bit smaller. They can get under the bridge. My understanding is the bridge clearance is about 11 or 12,000 square feet. I think that it's important that the municipalities sign it. Now, I also understand that through the 43 expansion, they're trying to facilitate a way to have a walkway basically underneath the bridge, right on that. But if you start to think about coming down here with a vessel, right on that, it gives you a great stopping point to be able to stop there, head down, hit the restaurants, get some food, go to the beer store, what have you. All right, it's there. Next slide, please. Now, as we kind of work our way down further, all right, now that we end up at Curry Park, and by the way, I was at the skating rink last weekend, and that is absolutely fabulous. And I think that kind of ties into how do we change this into a 4-season thing for our community and our tourism. And I'd be curious to find out if, how much further down, that could be plowed, like how much closer could that skating rink get to downtown? I would love to see that as part of, to be able to go downtown, grab a hot chocolate, on a day of skating. But anyways, needless to say, coming back to this here, we got another point here where we got a bridge here, which doesn't have a lot of clearance, but it still is in the neighborhood of 7 to 9 feet. So most, runabouts, pontoon boats, etc., can get under there without any effort on that. But again, we've got a dock, to accommodate at that point in time. Next slide, please. Now, this becomes, I think, very, very interesting, because as we start to come down, all right, now we have access to the actual core of our town. All right, is it possible to start putting docks down here? And these docks don't necessarily have to be that big, because again, we're not dealing with any of the larger boats coming down. All right, dealing more with fishing, runabout style type of boats. But we start to think about from a target audience standpoint for our merchants downtown. All right, all of those people that reside down the Rideau, like through Manotick, they all have, probably 90% of them have boats that would be able to get underneath that bridge without any difficulty, and basically allowing them to get access to our restaurants and shop downtown. So, next slide, please. Give you a couple of examples here. This is Kentfield's downtown, waterway. Next slide, please. Now we're looking at Elmont. Next slide, please. Perth. Next slide, please. Perth again. Next slide, please. Now, I recognize here that the ship has probably sailed on this, but consideration, and it is something that our committee has discussed. Next slide, please. Is that when we start to, look at the opportunities that we have as gathering points for our community within our waterfront, our downtown waterfront is fairly limited. And the vision that our committee had was to take a look at this and to say, well, you've got the courthouse building there, which I know has been slated, and that's what I mean by the ship has probably sailed. But the vision is to think about is that area is all local arts, crafts, cafes, and just an area where we can gather around and enjoy our waterfront. The parking area, I can see that being translated into booths, all right, a farmer market, on the fruits and vegetables, and then the building itself, cafes and galleries. It is something to maybe think about, is to say that, is affordable housing, I know that it's critically important to our community here and our people, but would this building not better serve the entire community instead of 9 residents? And I would I would strongly, ask that council maybe think about, is this the best use, for these very valuable waterfront lands? And also, and again, when I was talking about the actual skating rink itself, on that, could this be the place that you skate to grab a beaver tail and a hot chocolate? Yeah. So that's basically what our committee has thought about and talked about during, our meetings. And again, we would strongly encourage, council to support our waterfront access strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James, so much. Of course, Deputy Mayor and I sit on CDAC, so we've seen some of this evolve. I don't know if Mr. Boland or Mr. Tashek have anything to add at this stage in terms of how the committee has contemplated waterfront access. I see Mr. Boland raising his hand. Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you. And thank you, James, for presenting so comprehensively and for so visually. I just like to accent what he said. And as I think most people know, interest in this has gone back several years. Previous councils, municipal staff, community task group, as well as the current CDAC has done work on this. And I think this is the opportunity. If anything's going to happen here, it's going to have to be done over the long term. So this is the opportunity to really start moving things ahead and make something tangible. We've studied it and studied and studied it, and now is really the time to take some steps to move towards action.
Excellent. And I believe we have a recommendation to that effect, which will get things rolling. So, Mr. Tashek, do you have anything to add before I go to council?
Just a brief comment. I think that James did an excellent job in articulating the vision and the possibilities for us. We have so many variables that are all aligning here in terms of opportunity. And with the recent establishment of our tourism committee, this is a beautiful, initiative that dovetails with that and that will support it. So I would encourage all of you to really think about the value of this as we move forward. And I couldn't agree more with Mr. Boland and Mr. McNeil that this is something that's very critical to our community that we should be working on. Thank you.
Okay, I see 2 hands, and I know that in some of our discussions in the context of the CDAC committee, we've discovered that parts of the South Branch are under the jurisdiction of Parks Canada, and parts of it are not. So I know that a number of us having some discussions, some important discussions with Parks Canada in terms of their collaboration and support moving forward, particularly for the sections that they own north of the County Road 43 bridge. So that's it's been nice that we've been able to engage those stakeholders in more substantial way. They're not the only ones, but they're certainly a significant player. Okay, I'll recognize Councillor Barkley and then Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Well, first of all, my thanks to Mr. Boland and Mr. McNeil and Mr. Tkachuk for rolling up their sleeves and taking another look. Certainly, the interest from LeBoat has really reanimated a discussion of access to our waterfront, specifically by boating, members of the public who are boating, and a lot of people don't realize how far you can get down the south branch of the Rideau River. Yeah. Also called the Counsel Creek around Counsel, but up where I live, it's the south branch of the Rideau River. I have a question, and maybe this is better directed to Mr. Gilmer, because he authored the report that's in front of Council in support of the resolution, and that is, will the 2015 municipal class environmental assessment study be considered and studied by any third-party consultant that we bring on to take a look at our waterfront access strategy? And the reason I ask, and I think people like Mr. Boland, who's familiar with, he's quite right in all the hard work that's happened over years and years about thinking about getting people down to the waterfront. He'll recall that the late Councillor Terry Butler, and I know Mr. Gilmer, you knew Terry quite well before he passed away, his passion for the waterfront trail. And really that vision is embodied in this environmental assessment of 2015. There are lots of hurdles, and I think Mr. Boland will recognize that the Terra Marine project was initiated in part to overcome some of those hurdles, specifically connecting Curry Park to Rotary Park, because giving public access along the waterfront, basically behind 5 private properties. And so I thought the Terra Marine project was a great idea of how to create a boardwalk that would connect Curry Park to Rotary Park without people having to climb up the hill to Barnes, up to Barnes, the foot of Barnes Street, and walk along Clothier and then get to Rotary Park. So Terry, and it's envisioned in this waterfront trail environmental assessment, envisioned a contiguous link from Anniversary Park, just north of the 43 Bridge and soon to be Twin Bridges, all the way down along the north shore of the Counsel Creek at that point, connecting to Curry Park and connecting Curry Park to Rotary Park, and then at the foot of Harriet Street, actually having a pedestrian bridge that would take people across by foot or by bike to Riverside Park. Now, it's a rather ambitious one, but I think it's a study that should be part of the package that any consultant looks at. I know the focus is on boat access right now, but I think having a pedestrian pathway connecting Anniversary Park to Riverside Park would be absolutely amazing for this community. And certainly, through our experience with COVID, we know there's renewed interest in our trail system. So again, this environmental assessment study was a key part of our integrated trail study that precedes this council and the Parks, Rec and Culture Master Plan. But let's note it in any conclusions we come about how to get people down to the waterfront. I really I feel obligated to continue to push for this, given that it was the late Terry Butler's dream to see this happen, and he wasn't around to see it realized. So I guess it's more of a request than a question to include that as a key part of our study going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Gilman, I think you heard that loud and clear.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay. And as we do with all plans, as we try to do, we need to ensure that they align with previous studies. So I can confirm that we will certainly look at that EA study as part of this project.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Barkley, for that refresher on that previous project. I'm going to recognize Deputy Mayor and then Councillor O'Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I concur with some of John's comments, not necessarily about the study per se, but is that I think the Waterfront Trail, in combination with docking or whatever systems, I think they'll somehow work well together and be encouraged the whole development. A challenging feat in the water and out of the water, we all know. Anyways, I want to thank James and Charlie and Rick for putting this presentation together. The full disclosure, I am on CDAC, and I did encourage the gentleman to put this forward to us. So thank you for doing that. It makes a difference, and we need to maybe stop talking about this and start to make some steps that actually make action happening. So good on you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sullivan and then Councillor Strachian, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you all at CDAC for this presentation. I'm the liaison for Parks and Recreation and Culture, and I think that having the Terra Marine project or the Waterfront Trail and access for more tourism via boat is it's a win-win situation. And so do we know for sure that La Boat can get as far as Anniversary Park? Is that definite that they can come that far? That's one question I had. And as Councillor Barkley and Deputy Mayor mentioned, the pedestrian bridge to Riverside Park and the Terra Marine project I think are great ideas. And I'd love to see the waterfront at the library a little more used on a regular basis. When I see that picture that you showed from Almont, and certainly I've been to Perth waterfront and Carlton Place waterfront, and the opportunities for businesses and just, sit there, have a coffee, read a book, whatever by the water is so, it's just such a draw for people.
Yeah, we need more salamander downtown.
Yeah.
Like it's just,
and salamanders isn't accessible. So I think that's something that's important, that we have to have some things that are accessible, and for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I would certainly like to see us move from the concept to a little more action. So great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Councillor Strachian, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to all three of you for giving this presentation. I think in a previous life, pre-council, being on council rather, this was discussed many times, and it seemed like there was something that was going to happen, and then there's a bit of a void. So I think we're all keen to see some action take place on this. So I agree that moving forward with this, I don't know how speedy we need to be. I think we need to be thorough in the assessments on all fronts, but definitely to start moving in the right direction. As previous council members have already stated, the active transportation piece, the tourism piece, and so on. I think that those are all very important. Keen. I'm a bit surprised that this came in this format to council, because of the affordable housing piece. I don't think I don't see it as a ship has sailed. I think that was a very smart opportunity, and I think it will meet the needs of our community. So I don't think that we need to regret any decision there. I certainly don't. But I think there's room for development and changes to that waterfront, even with alongside that affordable housing there. So I think that there's room for a bit of everything, and there's no reason why that can't be a beautiful place, irrespective of any changes to that historical building. So I thank you for bringing all of this here. I went to see the La Boat facilities, and heard about their want to do more and to expand, and saw the map where there was a big void around Kempville. So I think that there's a void that can be filled, and it would be great to see some of those improvements. So thank you very much once again, and I look forward to seeing this project move forward. Thank you.
Okay, I think you can see there is collective enthusiasm, Mr. McNeil, to move ahead, and I know there's a recommendation this evening. Before we move to that recommendation, I would also emphasize that obviously, as I think you might or can appreciate, we are moving forward with the repurposing of the courthouse. So there is a leasehold agreement now in place with the United Counties as per the previous discussions. So while absolutely there may be some very other valuable concepts and ideas for that land, it is no doubt the case that the counties is proceeding with our full consent, of course, on the affordable housing units that are coming through some provincial funding that's been generously provided through the Ministry of Housing. So neat to see, though, how we can leverage every inch, I think, of Kentville Creek, South Branch, property and shoreline. And I know we can see that as you highlighted in the use of the ice on the creek. And there are plans, I believe, or certainly our Parks and Rec staff are wanting to actively explore whether or not we can get ourselves up a little further when we clear the ice next year. So there may be that opportunity to take it, perhaps not the full distance to Salamanders, but certainly a little bit closer. We also have walking paths on either side. So certainly for winter use, people may be able to, if not skate, perhaps walk up to Salamanders. And in the summer months, we are actively looking at replacing the dock at some point near Salamanders, so it's more friendly for dismounting, so that you can actually get out of your kayak and enjoy a beverage on a beautiful patio. So, or at another downtown restaurant establishment. So, thank you for those suggestions. Okay, so I will move to the recommendation, colleagues. You have it before you. And that is to direct staff to commence the development of the waterfront access strategy as included in the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan. This includes retaining a consultant to develop a draft strategy for council's consideration at a cost of up to $50K and exploring the possibility of installing wayfinding signage along the Rideau River and establishing expanded docking mooring facilities in the South Branch, Kentville Creek, to align with this initiative. And as I stated earlier, the conversations with Parks Canada have already begun for parts over which they have jurisdiction. So I think there's a lot of energy and momentum. So I'm appreciative that this is here before us this evening, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the motion as read. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Barkley, thank you. Any further comments or questions or closing comments by our presenters this evening? Mr. McNeil, Mr. Boland, Mr. Tashik? Seeing none?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for your motion.
Thank you. I'll call the vote before you guys leave. All in favor, council colleagues? Good. All right. Well, with that motion and our tourism coordinator and the energy that's being brought to the table amongst and by our CDAC members, I'm very optimistic we'll see action sooner rather than later. So appreciate all of your work, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McNeil. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, guys. Okay, colleagues, with that in mind, we've dealt with the recommendations under the CAO's report for the waterfront access strategy. So I don't believe there's anything else to do on that matter. Is there, Mr. Dyke? No. Okay, good. So I'm just going to take us back up to the consent agenda. We hadn't quite dealt with that. As you'll see, there's just one set of minutes under the consent agenda. So I'm just looking for a mover and a seconder for our consent agenda, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Strakian, thank you. I'll call a question unless there are concerns, comments. Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Okay, that passes. And then we will go down to a long-awaited report, and that's in regards to our land acknowledgement. Of course, this has been a process that began with Councillor Strakian's motion many months ago now. So I know there's been a lot of work undertaken, and Ms. Janou is here. And I just also like to recognize Mr. Friedman, who has been a key external resource, and I believe Ms. Janou will recognize him in terms of explaining the context and the way in which we've arrived to this very early, but I think auspicious moment. So welcome, Mr. Friedman, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Janou to take us through.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor Peckford and Council. Tonight I will be presenting a draft land acknowledgement for approval, and I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Guy Friedman for attending. Guy Friedman is the chair and founding partner of First Peoples Group. We're very happy to have him here tonight and for all his work so far with us on this project. Next slide, please. At Council's request, staff began working on a localized reconciliation effort in the summer of 2021. The municipality retained the services of the Indigenous advisory firm First Peoples Group to assist staff in establishing a reconciliation process. One part of this process is putting in place a land acknowledgement, but a wider effort is taking place. All staff and members of Council have taken part in Indigenous awareness training. This training will be a part of our onboarding process for new employees moving forward, recognizing that the training material does contain point-in-time information. Reconciliation assessment tools are currently being utilized across the municipality. Staff and council are completing a reflection tool to determine their role in reconciliation. Each department is also reviewing policies and procedures to determine how they currently contribute to North Grenville's reconciliation efforts and how their processes can be improved. This tool will also be used to review new policies and procedures moving forward. These assessments will be the foundation for developing the reconciliation framework for the municipality. The reconciliation framework will be created in partnership with Indigenous community members. The framework will address the needs of Indigenous community members, as well as recognize the Indigenous legacy in our area. It will also provide strategic advice to the municipality for how to respond to the truth and reconciliation calls to action under the lens of the local region and issues of municipal influence. As well, Council adopted North Grenville's new community strategic plan on January 25th, 2022. Reconciliation is a value in this plan and is prioritized in a number of the goals and actions. As the strategic plan will be an evolving document, it is expected that once the reconciliation framework is complete, the plan will be updated to include more specific actions. Next slide, please. The acknowledgement was created in consultation with First Peoples Group and was shared with Indigenous community members and local stakeholders who had been in contact with the municipality and was revised based on their feedback. The recommendation is for Council to use the acknowledgement to open Council meetings until a policy for when and how to use the acknowledgement is established in the reconciliation framework. The draft acknowledgement is as follows. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges, honors, and recognizes that the municipality operates on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe. We also acknowledge, honor, and recognize the historic relationship of the Haudenosaunee and Huron-Wendat peoples to this land. As well, the municipality acknowledges, honors, and recognizes all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with all Indigenous peoples, and we look forward to continuing this conversation and fostering the path towards reconciliation. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions, and of course, Guy is here as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Friedman, I know you're on standby, but is there anything you wish to offer at this stage of the game?
I'm learning this through you, Madam Mayor, and following the meeting tonight. Just want to thank the municipality and the folks for moving towards reconciliation in ways that you're ahead of many municipalities across the country. And if I was to speak to this at all, and the reason it's very well written, and not because we had a hand in it, but it really does take into consideration that territory has always overlapped and over time has evolved. And that's why you see the references to the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat people. And it also in the second paragraph speaks to how Canada in the urban Indigenous community is made up of people from First Nations, Métis, and Inuit all over. And so that urban Indigenous question comes into play, but it really does honor that nation-to-nation relationship with your municipality. And yeah, so there, there's a historical and a contemporary acknowledgement there, and I think it's good for your municipality.
Thank you. And Mr. Friedman, I know you and your team have worked hard to offer customized trainings to all staff, senior management, and council, and certainly we've appreciated all of the learnings that have been so graciously offered. So thank you. I know it's been a project that's extended over several months, so we're happy to see it come to light in this meeting through the land acknowledgement. I'm going to recognize Councillor O'Sullivan and any other speakers. Go ahead, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Freeman, for being here and for having a big part in helping us to become more aware and more knowledgeable of this truth and reconciliation and the calls for action. When we put a lot of effort in, and especially Ms. Janu and senior team who were working very hard on this, put a lot of effort into the creation of this land acknowledgement, and we all had opportunities to review it, and I had suggested a minor change, pardon me, a minor change that would make it more of a commitment rather than we would like to acknowledge. I suggested that we just say we acknowledge. So some of the wording is almost the very same. It's just getting rid of some repetition. So I would like to motion for a minor amendment to the acknowledgement to say that, Municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of Anishinaabeg. We honor the historic relationship of the Haudenosaunee and Huron-Wendat peoples to this land. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with all Indigenous peoples, and we look forward to continuing this conversation and fostering the path towards reconciliation. So it's just minor wordsmithing, and I think it just makes it a little more concise, a little clearer, and to the point. So thank you for consideration of this.
Thank you. Ms. Janu, Mr. Friedman, I can see that the verbs acknowledge, honor, and recognize are used in the three first sentences. So I think Councillor Sullivan's point is just to condense the use of those verbs to acknowledge in the first, honor in the second, and recognize in the third sentence. Do you see a challenge with that? Was the use of those verbs intentional for all three sentences, or do you think Councillor Sullivan's suggestion changes the meaning or intent?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
That's the way it was initially worded,
Mm-hmm.
only it was prefaced by would like to
Right.
acknowledge, would like to recognize. So the three verbs were separate.
Okay,
And
understood.
it's a bit like, that old joke when you ask the teacher, can I go to the washroom? And she says, yes, you can, but no, you may not. So you're actually doing, not would liking to.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I'll recognize Councillor Barkley next. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the suggestion you sort of passed by Mr. Friedman, because it's important that we follow his direction. But I'll take this time to say that this was a very well considered text, and I appreciate the discussion that we had in closed with Mr. Friedman regarding not only just this land acknowledgement, but the way forward in terms of dealing with the other calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And a final comment is this is truly a made in North Grenville. We didn't just cut and paste this from some other community. This is truly made in North Grenville and well-considered text. So I'm happy to support it as amended. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Strachan, please.
I just wanted to say thank you to Guy and Hillary and everybody else that did all this work. This was great. Yeah, I support Doreen's, Councillor Sullivan's amendments. That's great. If you need a motion, I'll be the first one to step up. Thank you.
I think Councillor Sullivan has moved, but the motion is not yet on the table. So I think these can be considered informally, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Dyke, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I missed the context of the question.
Indeed. Councillor O'Sullivan has just asked for a little bit of wordsmithing. I hear that Mr. Friedman has no objections. Are we good to wordsmith without having to move that wordsmithing formally? We have not yet put the motion on the table.
Oh, yeah, I just put the motion on the floor with respect to as amended, wording as
Okay.
amended. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dyke. Okay, sounds good. It sounds like we'll be able to move forward with just that singular motion to adopt the text as amended through Councillor O'Sullivan's suggestion and Mr. Friedman's endorsement. I'll go to Councillor Strachian, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedman. Thank you very much, Ms. Janot, for your very hard work on this and bringing this forward. I think the whole process that we have begun to undertake in the Truth and Reconciliation process has been very fulfilling. I have found it very fulfilling, and I'm looking forward to being able to just continue with the learning opportunities and so on, and being guided through all of this. I think that there is no time like the present to be able to make up for lost time. And I'm recognize that the land acknowledgement is often seen by many as the smallest thing we can do, but it is a very significant thing because it is a gap that we have here. And I would like to recognize that moving forward with this is, I think, an important step in the process. And I'm appreciative of the comments that we have received from Indigenous people within our community who have offered their review of the land acknowledgement and offered their perspective as well, because I think that you know, this is not meant to be anything that's seen as coming from council. I think the makeup of this council would be disingenuous for us to be the ones creating such a land acknowledgement, and receiving that input and guidance from Guy, your team, and other members of our community has been very fruitful. So I'm glad to see this finally coming to fruition. So thank you very much for everyone's hard work on this.
Yeah, and I obviously we're just reflecting on the community engagement we've gotten thus far, both on the efforts that were made around the first Truth and Reconciliation Day back in September, Councillor Strachian, and I think all council colleagues were in attendance with over 100 people coming together, right, in fairly short order, as well as your efforts, Councillor Strachian, to ensure that Indigenous Veterans Day was also recognized. So I do think there is a significant appetite in North Grenville to be more just in our relations and more deliberate and more proactive. So from our perspective, this is an important step in, as Mr. Friedman has reminded us, in a reconciliation journey that carries on for some time. It never really sees itself to completion because it's always a relationship. And I think being in relationship is what's most significant about this effort. So Mr. Friedman, I hope I didn't mischaracterize anything you've attempted to share with us in our previous dialogues, but certainly something that I've taken away from our conversations and previous work that we've done together, or where we've crossed paths, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so colleagues, with that in mind, I will accept a motion then. And maybe Councillor Strachian, you'd like to move it, and Councillor O'Sullivan can second, given her suggested tweaks. And that would be to accept the land acknowledgement with the small adjustments as Councillor O'Sullivan has suggested. And if there's no further comment, Ms. Janot, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to share with us at this point before we move forward with the motion.
No, just that we're very much looking forward to continuing our work with Guy and this council and the community as well on this.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, all in favor, please. Good. Okay. Thank you again, Ms. Janot. And Mr. Friedman, over to you for a last word.
Yeah, my last words are gratitude for the work that you're doing as mayor and council, and the bold steps that you've taken will signal to a lot of other folks that you are on a great path towards building a better Canada. And I want to thank your strong team of Hillary and all of the folks that we've worked with at your level, and look forward to, as she said as well, continuing on, and the beauty of this country is it can only get more beautiful. So thank you for your role in that.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. And sitting at the County Council table, I will certainly share with them our efforts, as I've done in the past, and hopefully we can encourage surrounding mayors to certainly reflect on the work we've done, and hope that they too can proceed down this path in one way or another. It is an active discussion at the United Counties regional government table, and there's apart from myself, there's another 12 mayors who sits there. So I'm hopeful that we can inspire some other actions, and as you know, we're just at the beginning, so lots of work to come. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a great evening.
Bye.
Okay, so that's land acknowledgement. Colleagues, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Janou. I know there's been a lot of stick handling of this one, and we certainly do appreciate the significant effort and engagement that you brought on what has been a very important file for council and so many in the community. Okay, and that leaves us, I think, to just other business, of which there is none. Have I missed anything on the agenda this evening, Ms. Workman?
No, you've not, Your Worship.
Okay. Oh, Heather, you're there as well. I apologize. I missed you for a moment. You're just to my left. See you. Okay, good. You know, all the faces, they just kind of blur after a certain point. So thank you, Heather. Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so we don't have anything else on reconciliation this evening. No other business. Any notices of motions, colleagues? Any notices? I don't see any. Thank you. I think we've dealt with all our bylaw considerations this evening. Is that correct, Ms. Bacot-Cormier?
You have. There were no separate bylaws. However, there was correspondence that was presented as part of the waterfront access strategy, but sits as a separate matter. So under J, there is a recommendation that council receive the minutes and resolutions from that committee.
Indeed. Okay. I'll look for a mover and a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Barclay, thank you. And I will call the question on receipt of those minutes, please. All in favor? Good, thank you. And then Ms. Bacot-Cormier, I will then move on. We're looking to any questions from members of our community or the media, anything?
I confirm that I've received no questions, Your Worship.
Okay, excellent. Councillor O'Sullivan, I see your hand. Did you
You're
have
on
something?
mute, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Sorry. My hope would be that this land acknowledgement would be used at the beginning of every meeting of the committees of council. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Dyke, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. In answer to promoted you, Councillor. Councillor O'Sullivan.
Well, that's my husband.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be used at committees council meeting. It'll use at council meetings, and also any meeting held in City Hall with outside people as they come in. As we host meeting with outside individuals, it will be used at the staff level as well.
Okay, I would like to propose that or put it forward to the board at the library and the board at the Ferguson Forest Center to see if they would adopt that and utilize it at their meetings, if that's okay with the rest of council and Hillary.
Councillor Strahan? And Ms. Janou, and then I'll go to Councillor Strahan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the library is currently working on, in tandem with us, their reconciliation efforts. And so their board is currently working on how they're going to address this. And we're working with the Ferguson Forest as well on specifically updating some of their signage and tree dedications to make sure the signs are appropriate.
Okay, because the library has been using a land acknowledgement for as long as I've been on the library board, but it's not this specific one. So I would like to put it forward and see if they would like to adopt this one.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm sure every effort can be made to circulate this proposed language. Councillor Strahan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was to add on to what Councillor Sutherland has mentioned. The Kemptville District Hospital Board has used their own land acknowledgement for quite some time. And I will simply put this in front of them as another alternative so that there's perhaps some consistency as to how we're acknowledging the land that we're on right now. So I think that that would be a great idea. So I will do the same and my role on that board. I would like to add a separate point, if I may. I would like to recognize that February is Black History Month and that it is the start of that effort as a reminder to delve into that part of Canadian history, perhaps if you're lacking some information or some of your schooling didn't touch as much on Black history as it perhaps should have. So it is Black History Month, but also it is Canadian history. So please make the effort to read a little bit more, learn a little bit more, and falls in line nicely with our process of truth and reconciliation as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it. Councillor Barkley?
Yes, just quickly, I'm looking for confirmation through you, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Chenot, that we're expecting a policy of how and when we'll be using this land acknowledgement. So
yes,
yeah, thank you.
That'll come with the reconciliation framework.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, colleagues, before I move on? Okay, seeing nothing. Then period of questions. We received no questions. Land acknowledgement questions have been addressed. Then we'll go to confirmation bylaw for the close of meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder for our confirmation bylaw 0422 to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Feb 1. Deputy Mayor McManaman and Councillor O'Sullivan. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Strachian, Councillor Barkley, would you like to move that? At a remarkable 7:45 p.m., I am moving to adjourn. All in favor, please. Good. Thank you. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your work. Great meeting. Take care.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
And the live stream is coming.